Hey there, it's Jeff Manchester, Manchester Music. Welcome. It's been a little while. It's been a little while since I've seen you. It's just because I've been really busy. Let's just cut to the chase. What's this video about? It's about anatomy of a cue, which is in a question I posed to the channel. It seems like ages ago. Something you guys really want to see, and what it is just we just go in, we explore the guts of a cue, every instrument used, how it was mixed, what automation went into it, and how it all kind of fits together to form something that goes against a picture. In this case, the director of this movie, which is called Black and Blue, it's not out. It's still in post-production. I'm doing all the sound for it, so not just the music, but also the correction, mixing ADR, mixing the whole thing, you know, the kind of re-recording stuff, blending all the elements together, also Foley and sound effects. I'm doing everything for it. We're almost at the finish line, but I really wanted to share with you a cue that I wrote that I think sounds pretty cool. It's one of the more complicated cues that I've done because a lot happens in a very short period of time. What I'm going to do is show you here the footage without the music. Then I'm going to bring the cue in, then we'll go dissect everything, you know, track by track. So if I just bring it up here in Logic, I believe I'm soloing just this cue, and we'll play it with the click track just so you can get some perspective here on what's happening. So here is the very short window where we have to have a lot of information musically to accompany what we're seeing on screen. All right, that's it. So a lot happens in a very brief window of time. And what's supposed to be happening is we're kind of going through the various stages of the life of the protagonist of this film, from when he graduates from high school to when he falls in love and eventually conceives of a child, which is then, you know, shown kind of, we zoom in a little more in the future, and it's his daughter introducing him to his granddaughter, and then we have his granddaughter here in the frame in the present. So again, a lot happens, a lot moves very quickly, and we lead in with the trumpet shot that you see. We go kind of into the trumpet, and then we kind of go out, and we kind of play with time. And this is very much an ode to that scene in La La Land where they do the exact same thing, and where I borrowed a lot of the sound design elements and stuff like that for the cue from. So again, one more time, I'm going to take the click off just so you can see this, and then I'll play it with all the music. All right, so here it is with the music. Turn the click off, yeah. So yeah, a lot happens super quick. Let's take the video out of the picture. And first, you'll notice that we have some automation written to the tempo. So we go from, I think, like 120 to 160 in a fraction just like that to keep up with what we're seeing on screen. So that's the first thing. If you go to the little window here, you'll see where I programmed the speed up here, the position, I guess 465 to 325. We go from 120 to 140. Yeah, sorry, this empty position makes way more sense than going bars and beats. So right there, program that in so that I have the click start right when, or the downbeat start rather, right when I think he throws, you'll see, and if you watch the movie later on, he's throwing a book in the air to celebrate the end of his high school. Throws that up, and that's when we kind of get started. So watch one more time. So let's go in track by track so you can see what I did. I'm going to get the tempo marker thing out of the way, And I mean, this is kind of like when you have guests come over and you make it look nice and pretty. It did not look like this before in that, like, naming all of the tracks here. But this is what it looks like. I went and named everything so it'd be easier to navigate for everyone. On the whole, like, it's actually not that huge a kind of session, right? At least not for the kind of stuff that you see on this channel. I'm very kind of conservative when I compose. I don't have 8,000 things open. I can get by pretty far with automation and just a few instruments. But this is, I guess, maybe on the kind of like light to medium side, track-wise and instrument-wise. So we have everything from percussion to strings to, gosh, there's a whole bunch of stuff. And I think one of the cool things about this cue is that I'm combining a lot of libraries. And for a lot of people, or for some people, it's kind of like sacrilege, right? They don't combine stuff because things are recorded in different areas geographically and with different ambiances and reverbs and all the rest of it. I don't really care. I just put everything together. And if you know what you're doing, and I feel like I do most of the time, you can make it sound like it all came from the same place, or like it all kind of belongs and fits the same dress code. So let's start with the string ups. And that's not the word for them, but that's what they kind of are in my mind. I'm not very scientific or theoretical when I do this. It's what it sounds like, just this one string up. So this came from, I'm pretty sure if I open complete control here. Yeah, so this is, it's one of the not so nice things if you use complete control. It doesn't kind of open at the library and then show you what you're using here in the sample window. It just kind of opens and I have to work my way back. So this is from the Berlin string series. See this D up right here? You can change, I guess, the root note from where it goes. So I think we started on a D and we went up from there because that's kind of the key that we're working with for this cue. So it goes up, but you'll notice that we have another string take the lead after that, and it's on the violin ensemble. So listen to how these guys work together. So you see one thing kind of lifts it up into the air, which is the string ups here. That's why we're going up. And then we have the violin ensemble that takes over. And the violin ensemble, I'll go to this section here. Yeah, violins long 2. And this is also from Orchestral Tools' library. Just some sustains. Playing under the table, so I don't really know what I'm playing. But anyway, if we look at the actual track too, you'll notice I don't have any plugins or anything like that. For these strings, I guess I didn't do too much. I know I have, no, I actually don't have any. Wow, I don't have any plugins on here at all. I'm just using like the bare bones, which is kind of surprising me because I thought I did some basic EQ work, but there's actually nothing on here, which is, anyway, it is what it is. So we have another string down over here. Just solo that so you can hear it. That's it. Now, a lot of people are probably looking at this cringing because they think, Jeff, why don't you just use the key switches and you can just have like everything happen on one track? I despise performing with key switches. I'm, I guess, old school in that way. I'm not sure if old school is the right word. I'm just lazy. I just don't think that I just don't want to like be looking at what my left hand is doing and the right hand. And I know that key switching is for some people like the way to go, but for me, I'll just create a new track, you know, duplicate the track, create another instance of it, and then just go for a different articulation and play that. So together, those guys, that's the great thing about Logic, I can just swipe down holding. They sound like this together. And I haven't gone to this string down over here, but you'll get the picture. So this is just kind of the opening strings. Let's go back to the beginning. Okay, so let's go back, and I want to show you one more thing. I have this lead piano reference. For me, I don't know what you guys are like, but I like to have everything, my melody kind of start from an instrument that I know really well, and then copy MIDI or just replicate what I've done with that lead instrument reference over to another instrument. So in this case, it's a piano, and the root, the kind of source of everything, started with this piano track here, which I think is just... Is it Hammersmith? No, it's Swing More, which is a great library that I needed to get for this project because this was all about like swing and jazz and everything. Anyway, swing, concert piano, basic piano, sounds like this, and it's kind of acting as my sketch pad to remind me of what my melodies are and where I'm going with this piece. So if you listen there, there's the harps coming in. These guys are mimicked, I think the piano is mimicked by the violin shorts over here. Yep. And then for that climb, that kind of ascend, I have full orchestra, glockenspiel, spiel, I don't know if it's Jewish or something, marimba going up and climbing that ladder that originally started here with the lead piano reference. So let's have a listen to that with everything kind of together. So if I turn all these guys off, yeah, you see that it started here with this lead piano reference. And then when I unsolo this, it goes back to mute by default because I didn't really want to have this piano. It just needed it to be the skeleton there, kind of tethering the idea, the initial idea that I had for this melody. So we covered the strings. They're all coming from Orchestral Tools. The violin ensemble is Orchestral Tools as well. We had this timpani thump, and this just kind of welcomes the kind of bulk of the piece into... It just gets things started in a really nice way, I find. Like that's it. It just hits when the camera pans upwards. I know that's a minor thing, but when you have a lot of moving pieces in a track, it's nice to have one thing. It's sort of like when you're playing drums and you hit the cymbal, you want to hit the kick drum too, just to emphasize that cymbal, just to kind of accent things. So, you know, if I take it out, I think I have some timpani rolls and other things that might mask it, but let me take it out so you can hear what it sounds like when it's not there. And here it is in. It's a minor thing, but I just think it makes all the difference. And if you notice, if I hit A here, I've got some automation, and I should have called this out, but I didn't. But I have volume automation here pretty much on almost every one of my tracks. Basic stuff, and I do this afterwards. I don't ride the fader as I'm playing, or I don't ride the fader after writing my Midi, and then I do it with the pencil tool. I'll go over here and just draw it in like a loser. But you really need this kind of stuff, I find, to make sure that things pop and kind of jump out in the overall arrangement. So we did it for the strings. They went up a little bit. Right, we did it for the strings down over here. And then we did it over here as well, just to help them poke through. So they started off with a little bit less energy, and then they get a kind of arc, and they get a kind of boost and push from that volume automation. Just hitting A, by the way, in Logic will open that up for you. And then we have the violin ensemble, which I just faded. That's just a very dirty, lazy fade right there. Let's keep moving. So the timpani thump, I did the timpani rolls as well. These also, by the way, timpani thump, might as well open it up as I'm doing all of these so you can see. This came from, again, I don't know why, but for this session, I just went completely with Percussion series, the Berlin Percussion series. And for people who have the original BPC, I think they released a timpani add-on or whatever down the road somewhere, and you get basically the complete suite of timpanis and rolls and hard hits and soft hits and medium hits. Of course, you can change things and or diminuendo. Go back to this articulation. Just really awesome. This whole Orchestral Tools is just amazing. And at the time of this video, they're doing a promotion with Native Instruments where they're giving away their ARC series. Giving it away. They've drastically reduced it. So I'm not using the ARC series because it's a bit kind of like too heavy and kind of over the top and insane for what I'm doing in this video, but you should know about the ARC series. It's on sale. You should get it. Okay, so we have the timpani roll, which combined with the thump just really just kind of gives the track some motion. So that's the two of them together. Do I have any automation on that? No, that is just strictly what it is. Again, just hear everything in context. If I take them both away, something's missing to me anyway. Of course, we do have those plucks, which I'll get to in a moment, but it's just not the same as when you've got these bad boys in here. Okay, let's go to the next thing, these violin shorts. Again, they're not called, it's not scientific, they're not called shorts, but this is the, again, from Orchestral Tools, the Orchestral Tools Berlin Series strings, Portato short. Just really good for like a very quick attack, just kind of, it's just got a lot of texture in it that I really like, and it helps if you're trying to get, if you don't want to use a solo violin, you just want to use a cluster of violins, but you also want them to act as a kind of lead, something to kind of focus the melody. That just worked really well. Any automation on those guys? No automation on those guys. Now, I guess we're going to stay in orchestral tool land because we have this harp, which again acts like a timpani in that it just welcomes things into the piece. And you'll see here, surprise, surprise, we're doing orchestral tools again. This is one of those quick command things, glissandi major multi. So it's not part of the libraries on the left here. It is, go to the quick load and you'll find it there. I have more stuff, but I purged things a while ago and now I'm reconstructing. Anyway, Berlin Symphonic Harps 1.0, go in, find the patch, and you get this just beautiful. That's going 4 times up, but of course you can scale it down to 2 or just 1. It just sounds more kind of regal and over the top if it's 4, just like it's one of those things where I know people say less is more, but when it comes to this texture and this kind of like fun stuff that you do and you dance around the main kind of main instruments and elements, it's just nice to have like an over the top, you know, texture kind of hanging out around the piece to give it some class. And if I remove it, let's remove it. Let's just mute it from this. Let's see how something's missing. And here it is in. So even though most of the instrument is kind of hidden, there's just something about having the texture of the harp there. It's just, we can't hear the full kind of crescendo of it. We can't, but having it there is just, you hear a harp and you think something important and kind of fancy is happening. And then I repeat things here with harp too, exactly, you know, same library, same everything. No automation on that guy either. And that just kind of welcomes in the next part of the song. As we leave that ascent, the bum 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 bum, which we'll get to, these 3 guys here. I'll just solo all of them since they're all kind of already in a row. So what the harp does is it almost welcomes a new section of the song. It welcomes a new section of the arrangement, as if to kind of like open the door to let, you know, the rest of the instruments through. It's just a great way to announce that something is changing or happening and give it again more, you know, more prestige. And then we have this other harp here. Once things settle down in the next section, I'm just going to pop up in the video again so you can see. And for me, this is kind of like just this is going to sound really cheesy and stupid, but like the seedlings, kind of something hatching. This is new life, a newborn is in the frame. So just kind of, it mellows things down and calms things down and gets us back to like a more kind of infantile sound almost. It sounds like someone just kind of like, you know, playing with strings and improvising, and it just happens to really work for this section. I'll bring everything in so you can hear this thing in context. sounds great. And if you want to know where this guy is from, this harp time, this is from the time macro series from Orchestral Tools. And if you just go here, you'll see harp 1 multi. Actually, no, this is this? No, it's got to be from this. Let's go to individual sections. It's got to be the harps and vibes. Yeah, it's got to be one of these guys down here. I don't want to ruin what I've done in case the director asks me to go back and change things, but I'm pretty sure it's from this library. Just gorgeous. If you get the time macro thing, it's phenomenal. Pretty sure it's from the time macro series, which was new and weirdly like not very highly intensely marketed, but it's fantastic. It's kind of like an answer to a lot of the Evo stuff that Spitfire has been doing a really good job at. Let's go to this kind of ladder that we walk up that I told you started from this lead piano reference here. The first piece of this puzzle. Check for automation. Nope, none. Now I know that that sounds really synthetic, and I'm okay with that because I have other instruments around it which will kind of mask its Midi-ness and help to have your ear go, oh, I hear strings in there, but I hear a lot of other stuff, and it just kind of masks the artificialness of that patch. And no offense to orchestral, I could have gone way deeper and harder trying to naturalize it and just with automation and maybe being a bit more careful with my MIDI here. If I open this up, just slide it open, I could have done a little bit of a better job plotting all this stuff out, but when you have these other instruments in here, it just helps to kind of naturalize things when things get together. So we have the glockenspiel here, and this is also from the wonderful Orchestral Tools' percussion series down here, instruments. I think it's, main collection, mallets and keys. The Glock is right down there. And we have, this is what it sounds like. We'll put the two together. And notice something that happens here, and this was like a nice happy accident. We don't have the glockenspiel going up at every single note with the full orchestra. It only joins it, even though I copied the MIDI and just dropped it down, as you can see there. I'll just zoom in so you can see what I'm doing here. So it's the same MIDI notes. You just kind of hit Option and drag, and add other instruments, and that's a very quick and kind of lazy way to increase the kind of population here in the arrangement and just add more stuff. But it didn't map perfectly because we don't have all those notes in the glockens in the original instrument. So watch here as I solo. Oh, I passed it, sorry. So you see again, when I go back, you can see the notes climbing here, but they're kind of muted, right? Because there's nothing on them. But that's not a bad thing, because what it means is you don't have this kind of uniform sound to everything. You don't want every note, especially when you're copying MIDI like this in a very lazy way, you don't want every note following every other note, following every other note, and you have this kind of full scale, and that just sounds kind of stale. But when you do it this way and you piece things out and some instruments come in at different times, then you're adding a kind of playfulness to the arrangement. And, it's kind of unexpected, and it's kind of brings delight and just changes things up. The marimba, I think, is more like fully featured. This also comes from Orchestral Tools, I believe. Yeah. So marimba multi, and we're just going on the singles over here, and all together. Actually, I'll just solo this. It sounds like this. And all together, it sounds like this. I don't want to do that. I want to do this. And it just sounds nice when the glockenspiel comes in kind of late. It just changed things up a little bit. Here's everything. So next, I think this is just a cymbal crash, really basic. Where did I get this from? That's not what I want. Go over here. Complete control. Where did this come from? Okay, yeah, Zildjian multi. This came from Orchestral Tools, the percussion series again. Just go and find it there. Just trying to find the keys under me. Okay, they're there. I just know they're there. So this is a really important part here, the full orchestral plucks. These guys, you need, well, I felt I needed bass, something to kind of ground everything. You need low frequency stuff. Otherwise, it's too piercing. It's just really kind of sour the entire way through. So we have the full orchestra here. And if I go over to complete control, where did I get these guys from? Whole ensemble. This is the Berlin string series. And we're obviously pizzicato. No brainer. Have a listen to it. I love how you can hear everything creaking and shifting around. Just add some humanity to it. Here it is in the mix. Okay, so again, really simple. I'm not staying with Orchestral Tools for uniformity of sound or anything like that. I already don't really believe in that. It's just so happened that they just had everything I needed. Everything I needed in one little package, which made things really, really easy. Next up, here comes a new library, Fluttering Woodwinds. This is what they sound like, and there is some automation here, and there's even some panning and stuff that I did. If I hit X, I can probably go to this. Maybe I didn't do panning. Did I? Let's see. So that sounds choked, right? Like it's not properly written and committed to the track, because you can hear the cutoff at the end. And this Fluttering Woodwinds comes to us, I think this is Soto, yeah, Soto Woodwinds. And I've muted the portato and the low here, these low and mid sections, so we're only hearing the high, we're only hearing this articulation. And a lot of people have a lot to say about phrase libraries, but I think they're wonderful, and I think they're great for this reason. If I don't want to spend all day doing the articulations for, or, just spend all day doing all the Midi for this, just this one little moment where we get this kind of windy woodwind thing, I can just go reach for the phrase and then bring it in. And I'm still writing, I'm still composing, and I'm still using all of my, wherewithal as a composer to bring this cue to life. But if I just need that extra thing to push me over the edge and make this really flowery and kind of, pretty, and we're in a field and he's got his hand on her boob and they're going to make love, it's just nice to have the woodwinds here. So here's what they sound like, again, abstracted. And here it is in the mix. I have to sneeze. Oh, I gotta sneeze. I still have to sneeze. Oh my gosh. Woo! I'm getting emotional. My body's having a reaction to this cue, this woodwind. So you'll notice that, it doesn't matter if the last couple notes are choked or cut off or whatever, because we have all this other stuff that is entering, the aperture, and we don't need to worry about that getting cut off. And I think that is like a perfect use case for why one would use a phrase library like this. It's not, I get tired of this whole it's cheating, it's this, it's that. A lot of people 60 years ago looking at this session would think that, I am cheating in 8,000 different ways. But I don't have time to write all this stuff out, and a lot of the inspiration just isn't there, and I can't summon it. So when I can hit one button and get this beautiful little line to kind of fly around and then just disappear, why not? Okay, moving right along. We did the Fluttering Woodwinds. Now we get to kind of the meat, where we have this full orchestra here. And this is providing, through strings, the kind of backing, the kind of force, the backbone of this track. Have a listen. And that's it. And you can see from the screen here in Logic that I'm doing some automation here just to automate, I believe, the dynamics to, you know, bring things in and out and just give them a bit of humanity again. I think, yeah, if you guys care, I'm using mostly ambient stuff, like mostly the tree, the Deca Tree mic setups for most of these patches. They just happen to work really well. I don't want anything to be too in focus. I want more like a huge kind of bouquet of flowers where nothing really stands out more than anything else. Just everything kind of works in this big ooey gooey whole. So full orchestra. This is again, surprise, surprise, from the Berlin String series. Don't have to even go there to tell you that's what it is, because that's what it is. So here it is again, and then I'll bring it into the mix. And notice how low it is in the mix compared to the other gain amounts here. This is pretty conservative compared to, you know, the trumpets that we're going to explore in a moment, all the way down to the chimes, and even some of the stuff that we actually these guys were quiet as well. And that's something I should probably call out here. So in the full orchestra, the Glock and the marimba, these are low because these guys all come together. And it's not that scientifically sound will double and just get louder and more amplified necessarily. That won't always happen in a perfect world. But when you have things that follow one another and dovetail and go up and follow the same kind of notes, you have to be really careful with your gain staging, because you could end up with a situation where by having everything doing the same thing on different instruments, mind you, in different channels and tracks, but all of their levels are at the exact same place, you could be just causing a lot of problems, getting really muddy, getting really loud when you don't necessarily want to be. So just be on the lookout for that. That's why we have these guys down, even though they're all kind of doing the same thing. So let's go back down, keeping loudness in mind, to the trumpets. Full orchestra is what I wrote here. I think it's because I was copying Midi or something. It came from the Woodwinds. I don't really know. Who cares? There's more automation though, dynamics automation. Let's go have a listen and then investigate where this guy came from. So there's another example of where I could have done a better job writing my Midi in, but I didn't. Let's go to complete control. Let's take a look at what's happening here. So trumpet ensemble multi, this probably comes from Berlin Brass series, which is wonderful. There it is right there. Trumpet ensemble multi. Let's go to the main collection. Hopefully this doesn't chug-a-lug and freeze, because it sometimes does. Yeah, so trumpet ensemble multi, it's got to be this one right here. And then we're just going for sustains here. Not even trying. Anyways, that's where they came from. This whole movie is centered in a world of jazz. When it eventually comes out, I'll share it. But it's all about jazz, and the trumpet plays a very important role for the protagonist in that it's what gets him in and out of his memories. He's blind, if that isn't kind of obvious. Always wearing sunglasses, but it's his key into his past. So it's important to have the horns there, and they also just help a piece like this live. It's a very traditional kind of arrangement where we have strings, no synths or anything kind of fancy or funny. It's all what you would find on a big soundstage in a big, multi-million-dollar room somewhere in Germany or LA or something like that. So in the mix, these trumpets sound like this. And look what's happening here. They're kind of diverging with the strings. So if I solo the trumpets, I'll bounce this guy down to a different size. Trumpets. So it's kind of going in the opposite direction of some strings over here, the violin ensemble. So I'm going to highlight this and have a listen. And I think the divergence of them, one's going down, one's going up, just adds a kind of nice, it sounds like I'm being very self-complimentary here, but it just adds a really nice kind of story for these two elements. So I would say just think of the key that you're in, think of what you're doing, and see if instead of having everything follow the same kind of path and copying your Midi, see if you can create symmetry, but not perfect symmetry, where things can be kind of climbing stairs and going downstairs at the same time, like those two things. Let's get back to the bottom here. So next up we have, where was I? Trumpets. It's always trippy because these things are still labeled whatever the MIDI was on them before I started with this whole process. I believe we started here. Yeah, that is just awful, awful MIDI writing on my part. Next we have choral. Again, I haven't really talked a lot about the Spitfire library, the Eric Whitacre library. That's what we're using. This is, I think, the first patch, the 2D all-in-one long Oz right here. Sounds like this. Now, I have to stress, I did not use this library because I think it's amazing. I haven't had a chance to really sit down and play with it. This was my way of like, I need to use this library in something. You could easily replicate this with any, like, we're not changing the world with these ahs, are we? You can use whatever you want, but I just so happened to have this library. I wanted to use it, and I got to the first patch and stopped there and was like, okay, I'm good. That sounds good. That's all I need. So on its own, and if I open up, if I go over here to, now I have a different MIDI system. Oh, it's because I'm reduced in size, I think. Yeah. So we're not doing any automation beyond that dynamics that you see going up and down from the mod wheel. And then we'll come down in intensity here. And in the mix, it sounds like this. So for me, this was just like, baby about to be born, having human voices in there, and also just gives us something different with the arrangement. And frankly, it was straight out of the cue that happened in La La Land. You actually had like a human choir in there, so I was like, oh, I want to get a human choir in there. So anyway, that's why it's there. That's the extent of my genius arranging planning. Next up, we have solo horn. I don't like this view. I'm going to open it back up. That's way better. Solo horns. So this comes from, is this also from, yeah, Trumpet Ensemble Multi again. I don't know why I call it solo horn, but I did. Sounds like this. That's me playing with the mod wheel again, going up in intensity, so we get a really sharp kind of, crescendo. And also it's just a good idea to introduce some dynamics in there. This is fairly loud. I say fairly loud comparatively to all the other stuff, where I think at like, the kind of halfway mark between unity gain and nothing. So it's pretty loud, but I just wanted some elements that weren't strings to be guiding the mid-range. And you'll notice that these trumpets kind of dip out to make room for the voices. That's where they stop right there. I think that was one of my decisions early on. So right when we get to 470, they just die out. Next up, low strings. Where do these come from? Surprise, surprise, probably Berlin strings. Again, yeah, whole ensemble. You know what? You're probably seeing a little repetition here. You've probably seen strings elsewhere, and I could have done this MIDI elsewhere, but the way that I work is if I want to have something in there, I don't think, oh, where is it? I just add it immediately and then just figure it out later. So I probably did some volume stuff. I probably did some dynamic stuff to make sure that I wasn't tangling with other low-end instruments and elements. But frankly, I wanted this whole piece to sound very kind of like thick and kind of, I don't know the right way to put it without sounding not safe for work, but just really thick and kind of like hazy, like we're just in an orchestra pit. So it sounds like this, these low strings. There's some bad MIDI right there. Looks like I had more to say, but I cut it off. Let's just pretend that never happened. And in the mix, they sound like this. And they follow the same pacing as the plucked stuff over here. So if I go back up, where are my plucked strings? These guys? No. Right over here. Well, you just look at what you labeled them, Jeff, and you'll find them. So they follow the same kind of rhythm and cadence as the plucked strings. And they're kind of up maybe a few octaves, but they still occupy and they're still in charge of that low end for me. So that's why they're there. The last thing, and really this is again goes to the detail, the kind of extra stuff, the icing on the cake, are these chimes, which are just beautiful. They just sound like fireflies, just like sparkling. These metal chimes here. And these are also contained within the Percussion series. Go over here to unpitched metals, and that's where you'll find chimes at the very bottom. Now some of them are arps and others are just sustained notes, and then there's others that are just kind of like finger picked, that makes no sense, chimes. There's one. So for this one, I think I needed to bring it up at the very end there to get like a little bit of dynamics out of it, but it didn't really do anything. But that's just kind of adding, it's like just the fairy dust on everything after. And that's so faint, you really don't hear that much of it, and you shouldn't. It should be all about the harps that are kind of jittering and kind of waking up, sprouting, if you will. But we just have these chimes on the end just to kind of, I don't know, make it kind of magical, because we're jumping around in time, right? And that might sound kind of curt, that switch, and you hear the voices kind of like just stop instead of go down and just kind of decay normally. But in the movie, you've got like other stuff happening in the scene that kind of masks that a little bit. So that's something to be aware of, is when your cues end, how to make sure they end without making them sound like you've just shut off a bunch of robots. Just make sure that you have other stuff happening in the background that can provide a natural kind of like decay to everything. So I feel like we've gone through pretty much everything here. Why don't we listen to it all again in context? And I'm going to open this up and bring us to the beginning here. There's some horn stuff that I don't really want to show because I don't want to show too much about the movie. There we go. So let's open this up, and then I'll say a couple words at the end and then sign off. I think if I could go back, I would change a few things. I would turn down those high strings. They're a little bit sinewy and sour for my taste, but that's what this channel is all about, putting myself out there in the hopes that I will help someone else. This kind of writing for me is like really, it can be really daunting because I'm used to writing stuff that I find a little easier, like the Patty stuff where we just have like curtains and ocean and waves of like F sharp for 30 minutes and then like, you know, like a little bit of piano or something very defined in the middle, kind of sprouting out a little bit like Hand Covers Wound or Hand Over Wound, Social Network, Trent Reznor, that kind of thing. So having to write in this very kind of ornate, regal way with all of these traditional instruments is really daunting for me. But I'm happy to share it with you guys in the hopes that it kind of demystifies it for you, because this can be scary stuff. You're dealing with traditional instruments. For me, the recommendation would be to work with a reference. And for me, my reference was Justin Hurwitz's score for La La Land. I'm not going to pretend the scene that we weren't going, the directors never, that we weren't going for that scene. When we go into the trumpet and then we go to the epilogue of like the fictitious epilogue of like what could have been between these two and how they met and everything, that's exactly what they were going for in the scene. Obviously the music is different and everything else is different, but that was my reference the entire time for this. And it's not going to sound like Justin because I'm not Justin. I don't have, Justin's brain and fingers and skills and whatever, but you should have something that you're working from, if only to give you ideas on what instruments need to be added. You hear a harp, bring a harp in. You hear plucks, bring a pluck in. You hear chimes, bring chimes in. You hear a score of voices, bring a core library in there, and just try and see how close you can get without copying or without chaining yourself to making sure that you have that exact sound, because it's never going to happen. But just a benchmark, a gut check to be like, am I on the right path? Did I kind of come close to this reference that I really respect and admire? Anyway, that's it for this anatomy of a cue. It's been a minute since I've done one of these. I don't want to like front load the video with me just talking about my life. I just want to get into it for you guys, so I'll spend that time now. This video, I'll probably do more anatomy of a cues for this movie. There's a lot of jazz, and I don't know if anyone cares about seeing jazz, but I was certainly way out of my comfort zone, so I can do some little videos on that if you guys want to see it. But anyway, thanks for watching. Hit the bell if you want to know when another video gets uploaded. A lot of people are kind of mad that I don't have a very consistent schedule with uploading videos. It's only because I do isotope stuff and I travel and I try and compose, and when I compose I can finally make stuff for you guys, or when a new sample library comes out, even then I can't really do much. But thankfully I had this movie which allowed me to create actually good content for the channel. That's the other thing, is that I don't want to just review plugins to create content if I don't really care about the plugins. And with this movie, it's just I finally have some good content that I can share with the channel that I think will be meaningful and useful and helpful to you guys. So that's why I'm oh good, I can make a video now and it's worth my time and it's worth your time, because I really appreciate that everyone is still with this channel, even though the videos are more or less infrequent. But it just means the world to me that people keep stopping by. And in a video that I did ages ago, and people who've left, so we'll just keep talking. A video that I did ages ago was I asked a question what do you want to see more of on the channel? And a lot of people wanted to see mastering stuff, but the second thing that just came up over and over was anatomy of a cue. We want to see you open up about what you used, how you used it, any automation, how everything came together. So that's also been in the back of my mind, is to deliver on that for you guys. So thank you very much for watching. Take care. Have a great holiday season. Merry Christmas. Make good choices. Bye.